There were definitely some fall downs there.
Wow. Oh my, holy. Michelle and Christina Naughton, we're so glad to have you and so happy to have you on Living the Classical Life. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Joel.
Oh my goodness, so I've known you for many years and I've been following your performances and it's great to see you again.
You too.
And so I'm really thrilled that you were able to play for us today, and that leads me to the first thing I wanted to talk about, which is whenever I witness you perform, you seem so in the zone. Was it always that way for you? Did you start performing from an early age that it became comfortable for you?
I'm not sure it ever becomes comfortable, but it's actually, that part is the part I love in a certain way, that risk and that, in the moment that you feel.
Yeah, and I think I've discovered that over time, I don't need to be afraid of the fear that comes before a performance. I think it's natural and it's actually sort of healthy in a way. I mean, I remember, I think it was Claude Frank who was saying once that we as performers will never be as good as the music. We'll never be able to play the music as great as it is. I'm sure he said it more eloquently than that, but in a way, I find great comfort in that, actually.
It seems to me that the guests that we've had on the show so far, almost nobody, with the exception of Rachel Barton Pine, has been immune to the effects of stage fright. What has it been your relationship to the feeling of pressure that comes with performance?
I mean, there's, of course, the physical things, the, butterflies in your stomach or whatever you call it. And as you're mentioning, I've learned maybe not, those symptoms, they still come, everything is still there. What's changed is that I almost welcome it and I don't worry about whether that's there. Sometimes it's not predictable. There'll be a time where you wouldn't expect to be super nervous and you're super nervous. And sometimes you think that you would be super nervous and you're not feeling it. And I used to worry, oh my gosh, I'm not sufficiently nervous. That's even happened. So, at that point, I mean, the other thing that I've noticed over time is that just how you feel doesn't necessarily correlate to what's going on when you're up there. You might feel great and actually discover later that, what you were doing wasn't so hot,
I was going to ask about that because what happens for a performer when you feel that you have an off day, that, oh my goodness, I have to play this big concert tonight. Let's say it's in the Munich Gasteig where you've played, but I'm just not feeling like I'm in the groove today. What do you do?
I think actually I have found over time that I'm not a very good judge of whether I'm in the right state to perform. Like, I'm not sure if that's true for all performers. For myself, I've found that to be true. And even sometimes you'll be like, I'm really feeling it today, and maybe I'm wrong. But sometimes I tell myself that in order, of course, I think everyone's afraid of, of course, things are not going to go as planned all the time, but mistakes to a certain point can be beautiful. And sometimes, this is weird, but when I listen back to an old performance of mine and I hear something that I think could have gone better, a part of me actually lights up because I love the process. The great thing about music is that we're always kids. We're pretty much never really adults as musicians because we always have so much more to learn, and that's the fun part.
So take me back to the beginning. Whose idea was it to start piano? Was it somebody's idea for both of you to start piano? How did that start?
Well, it was our mom that actually started us. She loves music. She's not a professional musician, but she wanted us to have this music in our lives and to enjoy it. And so supposedly we started at the same time. I don't remember that day, but separately, of course.
Separately, did you have the same teacher?
We did.
We've always had the same teacher.
Always. We've had the same, training. In fact, we've watched each other's every lesson. It's pretty intertwined. We speak the same musical language.
When you started, did you have the idea that you wanted to take this on very seriously as a life?
Well, not consciously, but I think I somehow believe that somewhere in me I always knew I could never ever give this up. I can't stop. It's almost like something propelling you. At some point, I don't even remember making a decision. I just know that I can't stop. That's more like it.
So at what point did you realize that this might, in
Point
fact...
of no return.
Yes, the point of no return. Was there a moment, or was this just an inevitable progression?
I think it happened pretty naturally, but if you had asked me when I was very young, even probably like 6 or 7, and I'd been able to see through a crystal ball that this was going to be my life, I think I would have been very, very happy. But, was there a moment at which we knew for sure? I don't know.
Well, not that I consciously remember, but thinking back on it, I think there are some times that come to me. In fact, the weird thing is that you were kind of there for that time when we were friends. When we were in Cleveland.
Back in Cleveland,
started,
yes.
Yeah, I think there is, I realized music is just something that's so beautiful, and And so endless discoveries, and you just can't like I said, I can't stop.
So inevitably the question becomes, so you were studying side by side. Did you ever feel a sense of competition? Initially, I believe that you were developing as solo pianists.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I think music's the one thing in our lives that we haven't been competitive about. It's always actually been a family thing, not just even the two of us. It's been our parents as well. Our mom was our first teacher, even though she wasn't a professional musician. I remember the days when our whole family would pile in the car and we would drive somewhere far for lessons, and the two of us would sit in on each other's lessons, and then afterwards we would have treats, and yeah, it's always just
And a family thing, and thinking back on it too, our mom introduced us to music, this thing we love, and also, I mean, your parents just teach you the kind of what love is since you're a young age, and music is something that we love. So I think of that example that they gave us, and when making decisions, when developing our musical lives, that's a source of strength.
I generally think of music students as needing nurturing in a cultural setting. I know that we're all Midwesterners. I grew up in the small town of Urbana, Illinois, and I would tend to think that you would need access to great concerts. What were your influences growing up in Wisconsin?
Wow. I mean, we obviously.
I would say the main reason we're doing what we're doing today is actually probably my mom, I remember we weren't even 4 years old yet, and it was just something we did maybe 10 minutes maybe twice a day or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And it was something we really looked forward to every day. And I think just having that, I wish every kid actually in America had access to this one-on-one time lessons. I feel like there's something special about that, with this one-on-one attention and discovering what a beautiful thing music is. It never felt like a chore. In fact, I went to preschool thinking everybody played the piano.
Right, and I mean, now even when we sometimes go to schools and maybe play and talk to children, it's interesting to see how they respond. Of course, there's a lot of people wanting to ask, do you like broccoli? Do you drive, what kind of car do you drive? That kind of thing. But there are, when the kids that do ask about music and are interested and those kind of responses, you often find it's because either they or maybe a sibling or someone they're very close to is taking that private one-on-one lessons. There's something very special about it, both musically and beyond that as well.
So tell me, whose idea was it to form a piano duo?
Not ours, oddly enough, but we love it. We're so glad. Really, it was just a concert presenter asked us, in order to inaugurate a piano, could you guys play something together? And we said we'd try it.
And we never looked back since. I mean, funny to say, because we love playing two pianos as well, but we also love playing on one piano, four hands. The first time we had to do that, it was even kind of
It's a little disastrous.
Yeah, we were like,
oh, really?
You're in my space. Get out of my space. But very shortly after that, I realized that there is something very different about, I think it's the only form of chamber music, four-hand piano, tell me if I'm wrong, where the players actually share the instrument.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and I think that creates a very special kind of energy, and I can almost feel what she's thinking, and sometimes I forget that it's two separate minds thinking at certain times when we're playing with the same voice.
Yeah, it's a dialogue, and in fact, I mean, you play the bottom part generally when we do that, and I think that part sets the mood, and I'm inspired by that. I can feel you set the mood, and it inspires me to do things on top, and when I play by myself, it's almost like there are cases where I'm like, oh, where is that, inspiration underneath me so we really do. It is a conversation, and we find great joy in doing that.
Tell me about your practicing process. So how do you divide up the time between practicing on your own and practicing together?
Well, in traveling, that gets even tougher.
Oh, it's
because
terrible.
yeah, we have to, if you find two pianos in the same room, you're lucky, and but we do a lot of course, you have to prepare your individual part. So
We listen to each other a lot, actually.
yeah.
Separately. To prepare a piece together, it's actually like double the work almost of preparing a piece by yourself, because first You have to prepare your part. She prepares hers, and then with the fun part of listening to your sister's part and getting some honest feedback.
Okay.
And after that part's over,
We hash it out. And
yeah, and then we put it together, and yeah, I can't say it's a smooth process. We are probably a little strange in that we don't have any real methods because we almost know each other
So
well. In fact,
well.
we even share the pedals when we play.
yeah, we don't
I was
even
wondering
think,
about that,
yeah, we don't, and I don't even think we even talk that out. I don't know how it's managed that we haven't gotten a foot injury from this, but I mean, especially, yeah, but we do all kinds of things without even talking about it.
Well, I wonder that because you obviously sense each other so well. What happens on days where you just get tired of each other? Does that ever happen?
Oh, it does.
It does, especially in the practice room, yeah. And when you're jet lagged and you're trying to, learn a piece, and sometimes you just, I think when in a way, it's good that we started this playing together later on. I don't know if we would have been mature enough to handle that when we were, younger.
So you've obviously found considerable and growing success already as a piano duo. What would happen at this point if a concert presenter were to ask for a concert where you had 2 pianos, 4 hands as well, and maybe a little bit of solo? Would you do some solo?
It's happened. The thing is that, I mean, it seems like it would be long. You have an hour and a half to play a concert, but it actually isn't. And we have so much that we want to say as a duo that it's actually really difficult to find a way to fit everything in, and also in a way that the program goes together well. Because I think it's important. A concert's almost like a meal. You can't serve like some weird things together, and and it kind of feels like that sometimes.
And we love doing this, and it's, everything becomes less lonely when done with someone you know and trust. And
Yeah, that must make a huge difference when you're traveling. I know for myself, when I'm touring, it's one of the most lonely
Yeah.
things. But that must be something that you don't have to deal with.
Yeah,
You always
it's
get
much
to
better.
travel together. What are the challenges of the traveling life?
ooh, I could go on with quite a few stories. I mean, like, how we were talking about the zone and how you get in the zone, and stage fright, and sometimes that stuff is like almost becomes secondary as you're doing stuff like, okay, let's say for instance, we were in Wyoming and we had to get to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And it started like 4 a.m. We got a call saying, okay, the roads are like closed. We're gonna have to take like a back route somehow. Okay, so we do that. We pull somebody pulls some heroics, and we somehow managed to get to Denver. We fly Denver to New York to Brazil. You get off the plane, you have like an hour rest, and it's time to go on stage.
That's incredible.
So like it gives you a whole different perspective of when you even see performances yourself. You think people might be in prime condition or whatever. You do not know what goes on. But stage is always that kind of that place where it feels like home again, because no matter where you are in the world, if it's stage or anywhere with the piano, it feels so familiar. And
Well, right. I mean, stage can feel like home, but imagine arriving there so jet-lagged and tired that you can hardly play. I know I get affected like that very much. Do you have certain routines that you've settled into that can help with things like jet lag? Are there certain foods that you eat? Do you drink coffee? Do you avoid coffee?
Well, I would say the adrenaline probably is more powerful than coffee. So
then like 20 cups of coffee.
yeah. So I don't generally
Add
drink
to
coffee
that.
before, but as much as you try to have a routine, sometimes having too much of a routine makes it so that it becomes an added stress when you can't have that routine, because you don't know what's going to happen.
When I think of developing as a piano duo, especially for people who are so closely related, obviously as twins, are you trying to develop individual voices, or are you trying to develop a similar identity that can mesh?
That's a great question.
I think the individual voices part
Comes
pretty much
more
comes
easily than
naturally
you think.
than even playing with the same voice, even as twins. Of course, sometimes when you play 2 piano, there's not even just 2 voices. There's maybe 4, maybe even more, because each hand almost can play a different voice.
Different instrument.
It becomes very conversational. But the most challenging is always to speak with the same voice, even as twins. I've just found that to be very difficult.
And do you notice differences in your musical personalities?
It depends on the piece. I mean, certain pieces call for us to be different ways. But it is interesting because even considering we have the same training, we've been through a lot of the same things, there are certain passages where like one of us, like, I'm just like, I can't play this for some reason, I'm gonna have to hand this to you. And there's like no good reason to explain it, and it's hard for me to even justify why, but it's just, some things fit.
Vice versa. I mean, we're pretty, we've done some very interesting things that way. We don't necessarily even stick to
The parts that are like written for each person. We interchange it, and it's an interesting process.
So you both studied at Curtis and Juilliard.
Yes.
These are very prestigious conservatories, and some people associate them with a sense of high pressure. When you were growing up, did you feel pressure to succeed?
I actually don't think I associate. I still don't. This is strange. I don't associate music so much with. It doesn't even always feel like a job. I don't think of it. I think of it as part of my life, and I don't think. I mean, pressure to succeed. Yes, in a sense, before a concert or something, I would feel this responsibility to play the best I could, and sometimes after a concert, sometimes you don't always feel great about what you did. Yes, I did have to deal with that, but.
I mean, the interesting thing is sometimes I feel like you can be the most free when one doesn't, it's harder said than done, but doesn't get too caught up in the external, results either musically, like at the piano, or what happens in the concert. Because, I mean, I can't say even at times where you're really disappointed, and those obviously come, for everyone. Sometimes those are the moments where the music itself becomes the most beautiful. Because somehow there's no distractions anymore, and you realize why you chose to do this, and it's like, this is really beautiful.
Well, I have to say that the times that I've witnessed you perform, I have to say it's always seemed flawless. So I have to ask the question, what's perfection versus taking risks on stage?
Well, I aim for we like to take risks, and that's actually kind of the reason why we like to memorize things too. It feels freer.
Do you always perform from memory?
We do. I actually like the feeling of a little bit of danger. Not that I already don't feel it. I mean, playing on stage is scary enough, but I think it adds an element of freedom and excitement. It does.
Yeah. So already at this point, you've had a couple of recordings. Your first recording was on the Orfeo label. How does something like that happen? This is a major German label.
A lot of, our career and everything that kind of came that way, oddly, was sort of an accident that, when it came our way, we were thrilled. But it is kind of a lesson in the always be prepared. Because when we first started, this touring, how that all happened, it was simply we were at Curtis and we were playing a regular student recital, and we thought it was a normal student recital at the time. Actually, thankfully, had no idea anything was going on. But apparently, Gary Graffman had sent the tape of that to management, and we didn't know that until we heard back from management saying, hey, you want us, offering opportunities.
So in fact, that's how you got management initially?
Yes.
That's amazing. So what is the role of management, a manager, a good manager, in the development of a young artist?
Well,
the things that I'm not trained to,
Right, as a musician, you've always pretty much focused in on the music, and a lot of these other things you don't really know how it works, so you're kind of just thrown out there, and your management takes care of all the things that.
You're lucky, people who maybe, it's nice, it really, I think of that moment on stage when you come there, it's like a whole, you don't see it, but when you're watching a concert, enjoying it, all the things that go on behind the scenes, and seeing that now as an actual performer, it's actually quite moving. I mean, everyone from the backstage people that put it together to, your parents, your teachers, mentors, managers, and people, patrons who've, given their time and treasure for, schooling, or audience members. And I mean, the audience members, I feel like it's almost like when I'm developing an interpretation of a piece, one of the most important things is actually bringing it on tour, playing it different places. Each audience almost shapes it. It's weird to say, but when I play, I can feel, people out there in a way that I couldn't even get to know them, like having coffee with them. And in some cases, we can't even speak the language, but.
Do you prefer the stage to the recording studio?
Actually, yes, but what happened with this, our most recent recording that we made, by accident, one of the pieces on there, which is Adam's Alleluia Junction, 95% of that particular recording was taken live. What had happened is we spent the whole day recording the piece in the studio, going over it like, probably like, I don't know, like 8 hours, who knows how long. And then afterwards, we were supposed to give a concert, and in that same studio, and they're like, we might as well just record it because you're giving a concert right after recording for 8 hours. And I was like, I'm so tired, I have no idea if I'm even going to be able to do this. And we gave the concert, and just this, I think the contrast actually between having no one there and feeling this audience there, that's what made the difference. Yeah. And we ended up using a lot from that.
And what's your relation to the audience? Do they bring out something more, or are you?
Sure, absolutely. There's a different chemistry with every hall, every audience. It's my favorite part. And it also, having this opportunity to play in different places with different cultures, it brings out some really interesting things just about humans and what actually brings us together. There's one part I can say, there's just one piece we play, Nan Caro Sonatina, and
is that the one where like everyone starts
laughing
in the same place? It doesn't matter where
you are. It's just like this one part in the first movement, you play it, you will hear people laughing, and it doesn't matter how old people are, who they are, where you are. And that's just so cool to realize that, I'm just sitting behind here, a wooden block, pressing things down, and that has the power to make, people laugh who can't understand.
Are you surprised that there's room for humor on the classical music concert stage?
Yes, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
I wanted to ask about image and marketing, because it seems that for young performers trying to make their way in the world, they have to decide how to be marketed. And it seems like there's a lot of pressure to be sculpted in one way or the other, either to be very cool or to be very sexy. And I wonder if there's any pressure to become people that you're not.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, for sure. It doesn't matter what you do. If you go somewhere, you'll say, dressed up too much, didn't dress up enough. But the thing is, and also being twins, it's not something we chose. It's there, we love it, but some people, you can't help how that's received. Some people are like, wow, twins, that's really interesting. And some people are almost turned off by it. Like, it's just like, how could you possibly be serious musicians? And so I kind of let it be. But I mean, it's interesting you say these things, and usually it's the people that talk about how, that what you wear, what you do, how you market yourself, shouldn't matter. The people that talk really about that all the time are actually the ones that really care about it. Because if you really don't care, then you can do whatever. Just the music should speak for itself, regardless of what you're doing.
Did you have any people who were influential in creating your product? I know that there are the Lebec sisters, for example. Were they an influence on you, perhaps?
I think we've actually not, the only way we've ever thought about, even like given, we tend to just do things naturally. If we try to market, the only thing I've thought of is like, well, I mean, when people say things, you're always tempted to, should I change something or whatever, but we've just kind of done whatever feels natural, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like anybody in any other job, you try to do what feels best for you and what you think you can give most, to the musical community, and to stick to that is.
Michelle and Christina, thank you so much for being on Living the Classical Life. It's a pleasure to hear you perform. It's great to see you again, and I wish you so much success in your future projects.
Thank you
so much. It was fun.
Yes.